Hello everyone, what is up? It is me, AlbyMTG, and today I'm bringing you guys a tournament report. This is something I want to do more of here on the channel whenever I compete in some larger tournaments. So today I competed in it was slightly over 40 players, a modern event where there was over $2,000 in prizes on the line, a bunch of dual lands given away to the winner. So definitely a fun time with lots of prizes at stake. And here you can see the deck that I played. I was playing 8-Rack today. 8-Rack, of course, being a mono-black discard-themed deck where your win conditions are the rack. It's a 1-mana artifact that says at the beginning of target opponent's upkeep, the rack deals that player 1 damage for each card in his or her hand fewer than 3. So basically, if you have 3 cards in hand, you'll take 0. If you have 2 cards in hand, you'll take 1. If you have 1 card in hand, you'll take 2. And if you have 0 cards in hand, you'll take 3. Shrieking Affliction then being the other win condition at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep. If that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, he or she loses 3 life. And that's where the deck name 8-Rack comes from. You're playing 4 copies of the Rack, 4 copies of Shrieking Affliction for a total of 8 the Rack-like effects. And then aside from that, we're just playing a bunch of discard spells, things like Inquisition of Kozilek, Thoughtseize, Wrench Mind is a fun one, of course. And as well as just a couple like removal spells too, just in case they get some creatures through, things like Fatal Push, and then a 1 of Dismember here. Oops. And then a 1 of Dismember here, as you guys can see. You guys can see my sideboard here. I was mainly trying to hedge against the smaller creature decks. That's what I was really prepared for today. I was expecting to see a lot of humans, but there ended up not being a ton of humans in the room, which was absolutely fantastic. Not needing to play against them, but at the same time I was prepared for that matchup, and so not getting to play against them was kind of, but nonetheless, the deck is just super sweet. I've been playing it for a while. Of course, if you have been watching the channel for a while, you know that back in October, I believe it was, I uploaded a video saying that I almost won a Mox. That was at this same location where I top-8'd that event playing a similar 8-Rack list. I think that there was a few changes made. I think I had more Dismembers, less Funeral Charms or less Fatal Pushes, something like that, and then the sideboard was different as well. But nonetheless, this was the deck that I played, and we'll go ahead round by round now and kind of talk about what happened in each of those rounds. So round 1, I sit down across from my opponent, and my opponent starts with turn 1 land into Molten Vortex, and right away I knew my opponent was on Seismic Swans, and I knew I was in for a fun time. So I did end up winning this at a record of 2-1 to put me to 1-0 in the tournament. Of course, Swans of Bryn Argyle, for those of you that don't know this deck, Swans of Bryn Argyle is a 4/3 flyer that says if a source would deal damage to Swans of Bryn Argyle, prevent that damage. That source's controller draws cards equal to the damage prevented this way, and then it uses Seismic Assault, being a 3-mana enchantment. Discard a land card from your hand. Seismic Assault deals 2 damage to target creature or player. So you have your Seismic Assault out, and then you have your Swans of Bryn Argyle out, and then you discard a land to deal 2 damage to your Swans. The damage is prevented, and then you get to draw 2 cards off of your Swans, one of which is most likely a land since you're running 42 lands in the deck. And then again, you can just repeat this process over and over again where you just discard a land to deal 2 damage to your Swans to draw 2 cards. And then it uses things like Treasure Hunt, which lets you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card, then put all cards revealed this way into your hand. So you can end up revealing most of the time around 5 to 6, probably even more sometimes, land cards off of Treasure Hunt before you hit one of the 18, I think it is, 14 and 4, yeah, so one of the 18 non-land cards in the deck. So I did end up beating this opponent again at a score of 2-1. He did get to combo off on me in game 2 with a, I was trying to dismember his Swans of Bryn Argyle, and he had a Lightning Bolt in his hand, so he was able to, in response, target the Swans of Bryn Argyle with the Lightning Bolt, which then proceeded to let him essentially go off. So yep, that was basically round 1. We played against Seismic Swans, and we got there 2-1, so we are now 1-0 in the tournament. And on to round 2. Round 2, I sit across from my opponent, and my opponent is playing probably my worst matchup. I don't think I've ever beaten Mardu Pyromancer on 8-Rack. It just plays way too many cards that are super strong against 8-Rack. The biggest thing that 8-Rack's biggest weakness is go-wide decks, things that are able to play a bunch of creatures, and with a deck that runs things like Young Pyromancer to create multiple creatures, as well as things like Lingering Souls to again create multiple creatures. It was basically just a horrible matchup for me. Notably as well, things like Bedlam Reveler really care about having things in the graveyard, and I'm trying to make them discard cards, so I'm just essentially making their Bedlam Revelers come out even faster for them. Aside from that, they also have their own disruption package in the form of Inquisition of Kozilek, as well as Thoughtseize as well. So it's just a really bad matchup. Opponent won 2-0 against me. So at this point, I'm 1-1 in the tournament. I'm still thinking that things could go okay. We could still continue to do some good work here. Notably, I forgot to mention this beforehand. All of the deck lists that you're seeing here are 5-0 deck lists of examples of the decks that I was playing against. These are not the exact list that I was playing against, because they don't have all of those lists published, of course. So these are just kind of getting you a basic idea of the kind of decks that I was playing about. If anything, these are basically like, I would say probably 65 out of 75 cards accurate in terms of decks. Most modern decks don't really fluctuate that much. So I would say they're probably about 65 out of 75 cards accurate, probably even more. Next, I played against someone that I knew, so I knew what he was on, he knew what I was on. We had a good time playing, and he ended up beating me 2-1. Murphy, if you're watching this, Murphy actually told me, Murphy is my opponent in this round, he actually told me that he randomly came across my YouTube videos, which was super cool. I love it when people tell me that. It's super cool, especially when I don't tell people ahead of time. I've never really told people ahead of time that I just like have a YouTube channel. I always try and let them find it for themselves, and he said that he said he found it on his own, which was super cool. So if you're watching this, Murphy, congrats. Murphy's actually playing in the top 8 of this tournament. That's not really much of a spoiler. I was going to say spoiler alert, but not really much of a spoiler. Murphy's currently playing in the top 8 of this tournament, so congrats, Murphy. Hopefully you're doing well in the top 8. So yeah, fantastic player. Very good Jund controller, and we ended up going 1-2 for me, 2-1 for him. So I'm now sitting at 1-2 overall in the tournament. At this point, I'm kind of, a little demotivated. My chances of making top 8 are essentially gone, but there's still a chance that with $2,000 in prizes on the line, you still want to end up doing well so that you can get some of those prizes. So round number 4, I played against Bomat Red. Bomat Red being, I think, a slightly worse version of Burn. You're playing things like Goblin Guide as well as where is it? Eidolon of the Great Revel, just like Burn would, as well as things like Searing Blood, or not Searing Blood, I'm sorry, as well as things like Rift Bolt that Burn normally would, but then you're also playing things like Searing Blood, which allows you to have some additional removal, things like Incinerate, again, like a 3-mana, or not a 3-mana, a 2-mana 3 damage spell, which you don't commonly see in Modern, as well as 4 copies of Ramunap Ruins. So I played against him, and I ended up winning 2-1. He did get me in Game 2, but Game 1 I had like 3 rack effects, and he's trying to empty out his hand, so that was a pretty easy game for me. And then Game 3 he mulliganed to 5 because he just had no lands in his first 2 hands, is what he said. So again, mulling to 5 against a deck that's trying to get you to have 0 cards in hand is quite unfortunate. So I ended up winning this match, which takes me to 2-2 then overall. And then here I'm playing against Merfolk in round number 5. Again, this was someone that I drove to the tournament with, so he knew what I was on, I knew what he was on beforehand, and this is essentially the list he played. I think he said that it's 1 or 2 cards off from Nikachu's list, but this is basically the list that he played. Minus like 1 or 2 cards. I think the sideboard is slightly different. I think instead of 2 Kira, he was running 1 Kira, 1 Kopala, and maybe a negate instead of a deprive or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I ended up winning 2-0 in this matchup. Merfolk was the first deck that I played in Modern, so I had a lot of experience with it. I know what cards are really important in what matchups, and I knew the kind of cards that I needed to be wary of, and which cards that I needed to take with all my discard spells, as well as the fact that, again, I said that I was prepared for these smaller creature matchups, and that's essentially what this was. We had copies of Bantu's Last Reckoning in our sideboard, as well as Ensnaring Bridges, and then Fatal Pushes to try and take care of some of the merfolk. So again, I was prepared for this matchup, so ended up winning 2-0, and then in the final round, at this point, I am 3-2 in the tournament, which again is reasonable. If I end up 3-3, chances of me getting prizes are not very likely. If I end up 4-2, then I'm at least in the prizes, and I end up playing against green-red land destruction. So again, this entire tournament, I managed to dodge some of the better decks in Modern, things like Tron, Humans, and even like Scapeshift, Valakut decks. But here you can see also Black-Red Hollow one as well. I managed to dodge that one too. But here you can see green-red land destruction. This was what we played against in round number 6, and the entire match was over in about 5 to 6 minutes, and I ended up winning 2-0. Turns out when your opponent's playing Arbor Elf as well as Birds of Paradise, when you're playing the best card in Modern, which of course the best card in Modern is Funeral Charm, and no one can tell me otherwise, especially you, Murphy, if you're watching this. Funeral Charm, I fully believe, is the best card in Modern. It's at this point kind of a meme for me. Whenever anyone tries to tell me that Funeral Charm is the worst card in the deck, I instantly respond with the fact that it's the best card in Modern, and then start listing off the fact that it kills Unflipped Delvers, kills Young Pyromancer, kills Thalia, kills all these creatures, and then it can even give Swamp Walk, which is great, and then it's also the only instant speed discard spell that's just mono black, which of course is absolutely fantastic because you can do things in their draw step, like make them draw their card for turn and then force them to discard it still in their draw step, which means they wouldn't have a chance. If it's a creature, they wouldn't have had a chance to play out the creature, and you can make them discard it before they get the opportunity to do so. So of course Funeral Charm is kind of like my pet card. I absolutely love this card, and it's really good against Arbor Elf and Birds of Paradise effects, and then we just ended up stripping their hand down quite immensely, and we ended up getting there in about 6 minutes. We completed 2 games in about 6 minutes, and I won this one 2-0 to finish 4-2 overall in the tournament. Overall, not too bad. Pretty solid performance. 4-2, pretty good. I finished 11th out of 40 some people, so not too bad. And I ended up walking away with double what I paid to play Magic. So I got to play some Magic, earn some money, and of course, any day when I get to play competitive Magic is a fantastic day in my book. And so just winning a little extra prize money on there is just kind of the icing on the cake. So of course, I had a lot of fun playing today. And we'll go back here to my deck list. So here we go, 8-rack, absolutely fantastic deck. I fully recommend it. I've been playing this deck for quite a while, and I've had a lot of fun with it. I've gotten to the point where I'm quite the pretty good. Wow, if only I knew how to speak English. I've gotten to the point where I'm a pretty good pilot with it. And I absolutely love playing the deck. It's a fun deck to play, and I put up some reasonable results with it. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys want to see more tournament report type videos in the future, go ahead and let me know down below in the comments. Of course, if you guys did enjoy this video, a like would be absolutely appreciated. A comment, go ahead and let me know what you guys think of my deck choice, the matchups, anything like that. And of course, I will see you guys here tomorrow for yet another Magic the Gathering video.